So this video is on the intro to inverse expressions, number 1 from block day. So Wednesday, May 26th for period 2, and Thursday, May 27th for period 3. We didn't get through as much of it in that class than we did the other class. So this is kind of the worksheet that we were practicing trying some of these. It's not something I'm assigning, but it might help clarify some of this information for you guys. So I am going to be running through it with you guys. So on this, we're trying to find exact values. And you want to remember that arc cosine and cosine inverse are the same. All of the arc and the inverse are the same idea. So for arc cosine, you want to remember we're going from here to here is where we're looking, okay? And so if I want a negative root 3 halves, I want to know what angle gave me a cosine of negative root 3 halves. That's going to be long comma short, and that answer is going to be 5 pi 6. That's your answer. On B, open circle at negative pi halves to open circle at pi halves. So remember, we're going pi halves, negative pi halves. Those are where we have asymptotes. And tangent is sine over cosine or y over x if we're dealing with the unit circle, okay? And what you want to pay attention to is for your tan, and it kind of helps just at practicing seeing this enough that if I have a root 3 halves comma 1 half versus a 1 half comma root 3 halves, which one would give me a root 3 and which one would give me a root 3 over 3? Because we see that. If you have your root 3 halves in your numerator, that gives you a root 3. If you, and I shouldn't even highlight that, it depends on where we are, okay? Whether it's a tangent or cotangent, but in this case, if I have my y, okay, as my top, as opposed to my cotangent, which is my x. So if I have a root 3 halves as my y in my numerator, I'm going to get root 3 when I work that out. If I have my root 3 halves in my denominator, I would have had to rationalize. We'll see that. Okay. Now I'll work this out once, and then we'll kind of hopefully understand what I'm talking about here. So if I was dealing with, I'm just going to use this space for a second. Okay. With root 3 halves over 1 half, I would multiply by the reciprocal, which is 2 over 1. So that's kind of gone now. And I would get root 3. You see when my root 3 halves was in the numerator. When I had it the opposite, where my root 3 halves is in the denominator, and again, I'm going to times by the reciprocal, okay? So 2 and 2, I get 1 over root 3. I multiply top and bottom by root 3, I get root 3 over 3. So whether it's an arctan or arccotan, or sorry, a tangent or cotangent. If you have your root 3 halves in the numerator, you will get a root 3. If you have your root 3 halves in the denominator, you will get a root 3 over 3. Okay. So I wanted it in the denominator. Okay, I want it in the denominator. Sorry, in the numerator, I apologize, in the numerator, because I want a root 3. So I want my root 3 halves in my numerator, which means my 1 half is going to be in my denominator. So that's going to be short, comma, long. I'm going to be here, which is at pi thirds, and that is our answer. So on letter C. Okay. So on something like this, you're going to start from the inside out. So I'm going to be looking at the inside here and thinking about where that is. And again, when we're dealing with tan inverse or arctan, I'm going from here to here. That's where I'm going. And this time, again, this is y over x. I want root 3 over 3. So that means I want my root 3 halves in my denominator and my 1/2 in my numerator. So that's going to be long. And then this is a negative. I need to go down short. So remember, this is negative pi halves to pi halves. So I'm here. Now this is at negative pi 6, but I really don't need the angle. I want the cosine of this. So this is a root 3 halves comma negative 1/2, which means my cosine is going to be my x. So my answer is going to be root 3 over 2. So if you're trying to find the sine, cosine, or tangent, you're going to be giving me the coordinates, one of the coordinates. Okay, if you're finding your arctan, your arcsine, your arccosine, you're giving me an angle. Arccosine 1/2. So we're starting from 0 to pi. That's where we're looking. And cosine at 1/2. That's going to be short long. So that is going to be pi thirds. And that's my answer. For sine inverse, I'm going to be starting from negative pi halves to pi halves. So again, negative pi halves to pi halves is where I am. This is a negative sine, and it's a negative root 2 over 2, which is going to be down here at one of my fourths. And this is going to be negative pi fourths. And that's my answer. On F, arc cosine. So arc cosine again, we're going from 0 to pi. I want where my cosine would have been 1. It's actually going to be at this point because that's 1 comma 0. So my answer is 0 radians, also 0 degrees, but 0 radians. Okay, G. So arc tan. So arctan, I'm going from here to here, and I really didn't need this on a unit circle, but let's just not think of it as a unit circle, just think of it as XY axis. Okay, so my arctan, negative 5/3. First off, we got to make sure that that's acceptable, and that is. Okay, so negative 5/3. It's going to be in the quadrant 4. So I'm going to I'm not drawing this to scale. Hold on, let me at least draw a triangle. Let me do it this way. Draw a triangle. Okay, so let's just say this is my triangle. Okay, this is my angle. Tangent negative 5/3. So tan is opposite over adjacent. So this is going to be a 5. This is going to be a 3. This is going to be the negative because of where it is in terms of the quadrant. That's my negative y's. And then I'm going to find my hypotenuse. So I'm going to basically have 9 plus 25 is equal to 34, and take the square root of that. And this is going to be the square root of 34. And then I want cosine of this angle. So my cosine is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse. So it's going to be 3 over root 34. But I need to rationalize. So I need to times top and bottom by root 34. And my final answer is going to be 3 root 34 over 34. That's my answer. On H, okay, I'm going to start like I did this one inside. So I'm going to start there. I'm looking at arc cosine. So I'm going from here to here is my focus. Where is my cosine and negative 1/2? Well, that's going to be short long. So I'm going to be here. I'm at 2 pi thirds, but I don't really need the angle. I want the tangent of this. And so this point, let me write it in black. Okay, this point is going to be short. So negative 1/2 because of where I am, ln root 3/2. So I want the tangent. So remember, tangent is y over x. So that's going to be root 3/2 over negative 1/2. We talked about this. That is going to end up giving us a negative because of the negative root 3. And that's your answer. Okay, sine of 5 pi thirds. So again, starting with the inside, this time the inside is a sine, not an arc sine. So I'm going to go to 5 pi thirds. So remember, these are your thirds. Okay, so that's pi thirds, 2 pi thirds. This would be 3 pi thirds. This is 4 pi thirds. This is 5 pi thirds. So I am here at 5 pi thirds. Okay, and this is short comma long. So short comma long, and long is negative because we're going down. And then I want arc cosine of that answer. And that answer for sine at that angle is negative root 3/2. So now I'm taking an arc cosine. And my arc cosine goes from here to here. And I want to know where is my cosine in negative root 3/2. So that's going to be long, short. That puts me here. And that final answer is going to be 6. It's going to be 5 pi 6. And that 5 pi 6 is our answer. Okay. J. So again, focused on this. So that is an arc cosine, and I do have to pay attention to make sure that that's doable because arc cosines have to be from -1 to 1 in terms of their input, and 2/3 is, so that's okay. You got to kind of pay attention to that. Okay, so again, pretend I don't have a unit circle here. Just think of this as, I guess you can think of it as a circle with radius 3, because what's going to happen is cosine is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse, so that's going to be a 3 there. Need to figure out my other value. So I'm going to have basically 4 plus b squared equals 9. So b squared equals 5. So this is going to be the square root of 5. So I want the sine for this. And so the sine is equal to opposite, which is root 5, over hypotenuse, which is 3. And so root 5 over 3 is our answer. Now on K, I have 2 things inside. I have this that I need to find, and then I have this that I need to find. So let me first focus on my cosine inverse. So cosine inverse is going from here to here. I want where my cosine is 0, and my cosine is going to be 0 up here, which is pi halves. So this is really a pi halves. Okay. Then I'm going to be focusing on my sine inverse, and sine inverse is going from here to here. And I want where my sine is a 1/2, and my sine is a 1/2. Going long comma short, it needs to be positive. So long comma short, it is right here. So that is at pi 6. So this is a pi 6. So now we're going to actually add these together and see what we get. We want cosine of that. So if I take pi halves, which I can multiply top and bottom by 3, I'll do that down here in this pink box, okay? That's going to be a 3 pi 6 plus pi 6 is 4 pi 6, or 2 pi thirds. So now what I really want is, and I'm going to write it right above it, I want cosine of 2 pi thirds. And so if I go to 2 pi thirds, and I'll do that in purple, okay. Let me change this to purple. Okay. So I'm going to find that 2 pi thirds is here. This point is short long, so -1/2 comma √3/2. I want the cosine, and the cosine is your x, so -1/2. So my final answer is -1/2. And last problem, similar idea. Little less effort in this sense because we just need to find sine inverse of that and then take that angle and subtract 3 pi halves from it. So if I'm dealing with sine inverse, remember it goes from here to here. This is, remember, negative pi halves is what we're thinking of, and this is positive pi halves. So I want where my sine is -1/2. So that's going to be long comma short. That puts me here, which is going to be at a -pi6. So this is really a -pi6 minus 3 pi halves. That's the math I'm going to do. And so let me just write that here. So a -pi6 minus 3 pi halves. And if I try to get that into 6, I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 3. So it's going to be a -9 pi 6, which is a -10 pi 6, which is a -5 pi thirds. So now I want, and I'll write this in orange so you can see it. I want tangent of -5 pi thirds, and it's a negative angle. So that means I'm starting over here. This would be 1/3 pi thirds, -pi thirds, -2 pi thirds. Here, this is -3 pi thirds. This is -4 pi thirds. Here, that's -5 pi thirds. And that point, let me just write it here. That is short long. So that's 1/2 comma √3/2. So I am going to have my √3/2 over 1/2, which is going to be √3, and that's my answer.